Hello there, welcome to part 26 in the 10 Minutes at the Piano playlist. In this video, I'm going to explain to you the idea that the piano has three sections and give a demonstration of each option using a very simple melody of Jingle Bells, considering it's the middle of November at the moment. And by the end of the video, I'll give you a few ideas that you can do on your own to master this, reinforce the philosophy, practice, improvise with it, apply it to your own repertoire. Reinforce major scales, practice the cycle of fourths, many different ways you can use this. As always, likes, comments, subscriptions are welcome. Have a look at my books and blog and podcast series, and be sure to see the links in the description because I always like to post some goodies. So I have about 9 or 10 minutes to get this across to you. Now the reason I've done this as a 10-minute video in itself is a lesson. This is not something that's complicated. I knew that I didn't need to give this a separate title and make it into a 20+ minute video. So that in itself is a lesson. It's a simple concept. It doesn't need to be complicated. In fact, I'm making your piano life easier by talking about this. The piano is divided up into 3 sections. We only have 2 hands to play those 3 sections. And generally they are independent of each other. There's the bass, where the bass stuff happens. And that kind of goes to about the F sharp, G kind of area. Then there's the chords, which generally take place, let's say from sort of C-ish up to maybe this C, and all the different chord combinations happen kind of here. And then the melodies are generally played from also middle C-ish up to all the way up here. And this applies to repertoire that's already been written, as well as improvising. You can use this philosophy to improvise in improvisation, in composition, when you're accompanying yourself, which is something quite a lot of people like to do if they sing. Or accompany another singer or instrumentalist. To have this concept in your mind is a lot more helpful, especially once you've mastered it and played around with it, than just seeing a mass of notes on the piano. Just this huge block of 88 notes is very overwhelming sometimes, and dissecting it helps. So using a very simple melody of Jingle Bells, I'm sure I'll mess around with the melody as well. And the very simple chord progression of 1 and 4, there's a 2-5-1 in there as well, very, very simple demonstration key of C. The idea is that you are going to master 1 or 2 ideas in the bass, 1 or 2 things you can do with the chords, and then the melody is basically, there's only one thing to say about that. The melody is either played with 1 note, or you can play that note as an octave, but it's still that same melody, 1-note melody. There's not a lot to say about that. The idea is mixing and matching them together, and that's the point of the video. So I'll use Jingle Bells, and I'll demonstrate the first one, which we could say is playing chords, C6, F7, there's a D minor 7, a G7, and a C6 in it. I play a major 7, don't be too nitpicky over the chords I play. I always improvise and mess around, I never do things as they're written. So the first one we could say is the melody over a chord, and then next I'll demonstrate the melody over a bass. Then I might do the bass with a chord. And then I'll explain something else. So, very simply, the beginning of Jingle Bells with a chord and a melody. That's the idea. So there I just touched a bass note in the end there, you see. So I used the melody in 2 octaves. You have 3 or 4, you have 4 octaves, I guess you could say, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the chords have kind of got their own little 2 octaves in the middle, and the bass has got its, what could we say, 3 octaves in the bass. So that was one example, melody over chords. Let's do another one. I'll play the melody here, and I'll do a bass note down here. You can't see it, but I'm just playing, I'll play C, I'll play F, and I'll play D and G and C in some order. Of course, you're not going to play a whole song in only one way. You're not going to play the whole of Jingle Bells just playing that bass and then the melody and that's it. You're not going to just play the melody and the chords. You're not going to do that. You're going to mix and match. That's the idea. So what else can I do? Let me demonstrate one of my other points about this, which is that you can use both hands to play one same section. So what I have just done is played the melody over the chords and then the melody over the bass, so they go together nicely. I played a melody over the bass, yeah, melody over the chords, fine. The next one might be just chords and bass, so there's no melody, so that might be that someone is singing, but you can use two hands to play the same section. So you might play the bass with two hands. That's something I do when I'm playing. I like to just play a chord progression, and then I'll go down, and I'll do the bass note with both hands. Then I'll play the chord with both hands, and I like to play the melody often. I have a very kind of symmetrical style, let's say. Of course, they do independent things as well, but it's something you might want to consider. It's one of my traits, maybe one of your natural traits, part of your musical personality. So when you're just playing the chord and the bass, number 1 and number 2, let's say, there's different ways you can play the chords. You can play them as block, or you can play them sort of bouncing open. So I'll just play the C6 chord, but the bass I'm not going to play as a... I'll demonstrate in two ways. I'll play it as a walking bass, which means I'm just playing the notes of the chord with a chromatic connection to the next one. As long as it stays in time, it doesn't matter what the connecting notes are. They can be out of key. It could be completely out of key like that, and it still works. If you listen to many bass players, many jazz recordings, you can hear the bass player playing notes which are not in this chord or in the scale, but they still work. It's called musical context. So you can play the chord as a block. If you can imagine the song. So you can hear the melody being played somewhere else, another instrument, somebody singing, even you. So here I was playing it as a kind of block, and I did a walking bass. So this time I might play not a walking bass. I'll just bounce on the bass note as an octave, C there, and F and D and G. But I'm using it as a drum. It's kind of being a metronome. And the chord, I'm just going to play around with the notes of the chord. You might call this improvising, but it's not really. I'm just playing the chord, but I'm not playing all 4 notes at the same time. It's an accompanying style, you see. It just breaks it up a bit more, but it only works if you have a steady timing. Steadiness in execution is very important. Don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. And again, you could play that with both hands in the middle. If somebody's singing, you may not do the bass. Maybe there's a bass player and you're just in the middle. So you're just breaking up the chord. It might sound a bit weird here, but you have to imagine that there's maybe a bass player, there's a singer. This is just isolated, of course. And then the melody, you can play with one finger as an octave, or as an octave with 2 hands, which is something that I like to do. So if I were to play this as a kind of proper piece, that's probably how I would begin, because I like to layer things and get more intense. So I might just begin with 2 hands playing the melody. Then I might just do the bass. Maybe I'll run down doing the chord with both hands, and then play the 2 Cs with both hands. So I'm breaking it up, and that's what you're supposed to do. So coming to the end of the video, the homework part I want you to take away from this is that, first of all, visualize the whole philosophy in your mind. If you don't understand the concept, then you're going to be a bit confused at the piano trying to enforce it. Understand away from the piano that there's the bass section, where the bass is often one note or a walking bass, and that's normally done by the left hand, but you can share. The middle-ish area is chords. That can be the left hand or the right hand, or both together. And then the melody is often just played with the right hand, but you can bring up the left hand too. And the melody is often played as a single note, but can be played as an octave. Your choice. So mix and match. But apply it to what? Apply it to repertoire you're learning, reinforce the major scales, improvise or make a little composition based on major scales, based on the cycle of fourths, for example. Reinforce common chord progressions like the 2-5-1. Let's take just the major scales and the cycle of fourths as a quick demonstration, and I'll just do the first three, C to F to B flat. Let's just say that you want to practice this, and you might just do it with a bass. So the bass might be any rhythm that you want. That just comes to me for no reason at all. So I'm just playing C in that kind of rhythm. Now I might just play the major scale in the right hand with octaves. Just like that, that's what I've done. Then you might go up to F, but come down and do the octaves, do the melody, but where the chords are normally played. Just like that, just play around with it. And then you might do it instead with the chords in the left hand and the major scale in the right hand, or you could even do a walking bass with the major scale and a walking bass, a walking melody. So you might go, let's just go to B flat, you might literally do it like this. That kind of thing. So you're doing the melody with the bass, both in the same kind of style. You have to mix and match, you see, and you have to understand that this isn't going to work if you can't see the philosophy, the concept in your mind away from the piano. Definitely think about your internal metronome when you're doing this, because steadiness in execution is so important. And also try varying your touch. Play louder, play softer, change the rhythm. Try with the metronome to find your natural limit of certain things and increase your natural limit. There's lots of different ways. Personalization is very, very important to the water pianist. So I hope that you have got something from this. Bass, chords, melody, 2 hands, 3 sections, mix and match. Apply it to repertoire, apply it to chord progressions, apply it to improvisation, apply it to composition. Try singing or accompanying somebody, playing along with a recording. Many different ways. I'm just hoping that you'll take something from this and apply it and be a lot more orientated at the piano. As always, likes, comments, subscriptions are always welcome. Have a look at my books and blog and podcast series, and I'll see you in the next video. All the best, and bye for now.